So Gabby, what issues or issue that you've been faced with in the economy right now of TNT?
Well, at present, there's a serious Forex crisis. I think not only myself, but a lot of small business owners having a challenge, and it is something that we need to address because uh, the foreign exchange, the foreign currency that we shortage that we have in right now is a serious, it has a serious concern.
Definitely. And I would say that with this concern right now that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, it affecting more the small businesses, because the big businesses, they don't have that issue where they go to the banks and they wouldn't be able to obtain US. Because here, how the banks look at it, it's more about making profit for them. So when a big business comes for a certain amount of US and they know to themselves that this business would accumulate a certain amount of revenue, they know that that bank will repay them. So it's not our issue to give the big businesses Forex, but for the small businesses, that's the problem. And how would we alleviate something like that? That's the question.
We could be a little more diversified
Mhm.
in terms of trying to, help the small business owners a little, free flow
Okay. hmm
instead of holding back on the flow of the currency.
hmm
It would help a lot. A lot of people complaining about not being able to access US,
Yes.
including myself, because recently I traveled and I had this problem.
hmm
When I didn't went to the bank, but I was unable to, access US currency. The only place I could have gotten the US was at the airport. And it was really late.
Yeah.
My flight was late in the night. I did get it, but it had there was one boot exchange where I could have access US.
And
currency.
those boots that you mentioned about there, it's cambio boot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it have approximately one when it is that you enter the airport,
Right.
and I
correct.
believe when it is you going up the escalator, it have another.
Yes, there's another
And
one.
I remember one time that I went to exchange to purchase US, and it was the rate of I believe a ridiculous rate, 8 or something like that.
Correct.
And I was like, how it is you all could be selling at that rate when it is that when you go to the bank and other places, it's much of a cheaper rate. So these are the issues that are being faced with when someone may want to purchase US, but then after the purchasing power of that person, it may not be there that they can't really purchase that US currency.
Yes, and that is very challenging right now. I mean, when you go to the other Caribbean islands, you don't have that problem out there.
No.
No. It's very easy to access
hmm
US. Why it is here in Trinidad, we are having that problem once again. Why it is because back then, a few years ago, we didn't have that problem.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
I used to travel a lot,
Mhm.
and it was very easy to walk into the bank and say, here, what? I need 200 US, I
Mhm.
need 1,000 US, get exchange, and it was easy to get. So what it is causing, us, the people, not being able to access the currency when it should be free flowing
Mhm.
throughout the island,
Mhm.
both Trinidad and Tobago,
Correct.
right? It is really challenging because, when you're going to order stuff, you can't order in TT.
Yeah.
When you go online to
Cannot.
purchase stuff, you can't order in TT. It must be in US. For small business owners, it's really challenging, including myself. And it's so easy for, people with bigger companies. It's easy for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy. So why this is a big deal in Trinidad and Tobago? And it shouldn't be, because the rest of the Caribbean islands, they don't have that problem.
No, they don't have.
When you go to other countries, you must have you must have that currency on you, because you can't go to Barbados and say, here, what, I have TT, I want to buy this. It's crazy.
And you mentioned that you can't go to Barbados and use TT currency to buy something. I went to Guyana recently, and it was so intriguing that when I went by the gas station with US currency, the pump attendant told me that they're not accepting US currency. I need to provide Guyanese currency to them. And when I asked why, she said that they don't know how to detect fake US currency. So why it is that we don't implement something where it is that when persons come to Trinidad, that they now could exchange their US currency into TT currency and purchase goods, purchase exactly what they want to, because Trinidad is the hub out of all Caribbean countries in terms of business. We may not be that tourism focused, but we are still the number one wealthiest. We and Jamaica are the two wealthiest Caribbean countries, despite Guyana discovered oil. They have many years again to reach to our standard. So anyone who wants to say negative things about their country, Trinidad and Tobago, and say that Ghana is the place to be, it's not. When it is that you speak to citizens of Ghana, it's not trickling down to the average citizen as yet.
Yes.
It's benefiting the expats, those who are in the oil and gas industry. So those who may be looking to go across to Ghana to do business, it don't necessarily mean that it will be profitable. The US currency in Ghana is something that it's there. So it's not to say that it don't have an issue of getting, but in terms of you leaving Trinidad and going across it to open business in Ghana, it don't necessarily mean to be successful, because we still have a resilient economy in Trinidad presently, and I believe for a very long time.
I think that our leaders, not because we have legislation for this. There are rules, how to go about these things. Yes, we know that they have legislation for it, but in Trinidad, these things are not being implemented. I don't know why, but this is something that it's affecting us. It's affecting the small business owners, it's affecting the regular people, and it must have a way that we could try to, be able to maneuver the currency within our island. There must be a way that we could do that. You know
what I would say? I believe that this is a big business, Gabby. I believe that people are holding the US currency in Trinidad.
Yes.
And for example, if it is that you have 10,000 US, you could sell that 8 to 1. And if it is you have 100,000 US, you could sell that 10 to 1. Because the more US you have is the more that you could sell it at a higher rate, because people, businesses, they are desperate. They need their goods, customers, the supply and demand is there for certain products. So it's like, okay, I will purchase at a higher amount and I will just put that cost on the customer. And that's something very negative, and we are seeing it happening presently.
Yes, correct. I mean, diversifying the economy, we need to look into that.
Yes.
How do we look into that? How do we begin to look into diversifying the economy in a more easygoing way? We need to look into that. How do we start? How do we begin?
I think we begin by implementing some sort of legislation. Like you can't be selling US black market at a certain rate. It should only have certain booths or certain businesses that could sell US currency that are considered legal in the system, registered. But you can't just be purchasing US from this person, that person, at all kind of exorbitant rates.
And that is what they're doing right now in Trinidad. Because when you go to the Chinese, because everybody knows, not nothing hush-hush in Trinidad. You can go to the Chinese and you can purchase US.
Yes.
Right? You can go to the banks and purchase US, as well as purchasing US in the airport. Right? Purchasing the US is not the problem, it's getting access
Yes.
to the US. You understand? So these are things that really affecting us here in Trinidad. And it's starting to become, it's really, really depressing.
And
It's depressing because
it's
when
depressing.
you have
Just even
your
talking
business,
about it.
when you have to buy stuff, when you have to order stuff, you can't access US currency.
Correct. And like coming up here, it's carnival season. You could say carnival season start as Christmas time ends,
Right.
straight to March, because carnival next year is later. Normally it's be February, and around this time is where we have the highest amount of tourists that come into our country. So let me retract. I mentioned that we don't have a tourism base, but around carnival time, out of all the Caribbean countries, we are number one in terms of tourism in that space of time.
Yes.
So where that US currency is going, okay, to the hotels, to some businesses and so forth. So why it is now, it can be some sort of regularization where within that time frame we accumulate X amount of US that could actually put towards small businesses, those who in need of it, because it actually have small businesses right now closing down because of the non-accessibility of the US currency.
Accessing, like the legislation, is one thing, but in making sure that these things, these bodies work, is what we don't have. We don't have the you pass a legislation, make sure it is being implemented, right? We have another problem with that as well.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't pass it and then you're not doing what you said you're going to do.
The follow-ups, yeah.
You can't do that.
Correct.
It doesn't make sense doing that. And, people who knows that it just wouldn't work.
And it come like property tax. Like right now, not 100% of household owners pay the property tax.
No.
It's like about 50 to 60%. So government is saying that they pass a legislation where it is property tax must be paid. But to date, it's approximately 50 to 60%. Not trying to get in politics, but just trying to show you the comparison when it is that you are passing a legislation that follow up. Those field officers, they have to do their job, go to different outlets to make sure that it's across the board a certain rate that you purchase in the US and not exorbitant rates. It shouldn't be fluctuating, it should be just standard across the board. And that is one of the biggest problems that we will face going into legislation of the US currency, because we experience it within, like for example, the property tax and other things previously. So
yes. And the thing about it is the ones who have access to the US, right? I think they, like you said, they withholding it.
yeah.
They're holding it. For instance, there are some things that we can do to get an easy flow. Let's say goods. There are some goods we don't need to be importing a lot of food stuff.
Correct. Our import bill is very
stuff.
high.
Like I myself is a very small farmer, right? And I try to plant my stuff. I try to plant a lot so I don't have to always run to the market. But in terms of big farmers, they should be able to export.
Yes.
Instead of us importing a lot of goods that we don't need to import, right? A lot of food stuff we don't need to import. And hence the reason why we need to implement, certain regulations. We need to get them to say, hey, here what? Passing this legislation, and we have a body to make sure that everything is being, carried out how it should. We can have a better US.
Yeah, I agree 100%, because you see, it's so much of nepotism where big businesses and small businesses comes in, and diversification of the economy is important. Our food bill is very high, in billions of dollars each year, and we now have to diversify the economy by supporting agriculture,
And
those
local
farmers.
business. Yes, local
And
businesses.
we actually have products here, goods that it's not chemically injected,
Correct.
so that people don't realize that what you eat is how it is that your body will function.
Yes. Strange enough, I remember something while I was in the Virgin Islands recently. I wanted to get watermelon. And because I so accustomed to Trinidad,
Yeah.
good stuff, they had watermelons, but it weren't as good as ours. It was a little, dry, and to me, it wasn't something that I really wanted to consume. And I think by supporting the locals, we could even get our products up the islands,
For
our
sure.
produce up the islands, because it's our quality when it comes to food stuff, fruits, vegetables. To me, after traveling, top class.
Top class. For sure.
Top class. I must say that Trinidad, I grew pawpaw, no chemical.
And in terms of how it is that we cook with seasoning and these things, I believe that, sorry for other Caribbean countries, but we are the number one in terms of the different spices that we put in our foods. KFC, number one. Doubles, unique, number one in the Caribbean.
Yes.
What else you like to add?
I love my fruits. And herbs and spices. And these are things that we could export and bring the US currency back to Trinidad.
Yes.
Right? We export goods, we bring in the income. And it could flow freely without any problems. These are things we need to look into, and these are things that I would hope that our government could, really, really dig into and try to come together and work for the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Love that. And in closing, Gabby, what it is that you would like to tell those who were in power about this US currency? Because you see, this is not, once again, talking about politics. We are not with one side or the other side. We're just being for the people, because the people is everything. And if it's affecting the people, it's where that I would feel like I'm feeling right now like dissatisfied as to what is happening.
Because you had a recent problem as well obtaining.
Correct, yeah. I had went to a particular bank and they was telling me that's what you wanted for, and I was saying that I needed to pay bills, and it was like, you could just get the money in TT, but I said no, I want it in US because I have my things to do. Despite whatever I wanted for, if I have a US account, I should be able to get my US without any questions because it is running through the bank.
I think public awareness, educating people, small businesses, navigating the Forex crisis, that would help empower us as small business owners to, manage and have access to the US currency. We need to educate people, we need to get information out there, we need to be mobile with it.
Yes. Yeah.
We need to be mobile with it.
Education is everything.
It's like, all right, even though being in a city from, let's say, Sandy Grande to, let's say, Chagaramas, from Chagaramas to San Fernando, you would have a better knowledge about how to get about. But what about people in rural communities who also have businesses, hotel owners, food business, right? They need to be able as well to access the US currency. here in Trinidad. So we need to mobilize, we need to raise the awareness, and we need to get the information out there.
Definitely.
So it's something definitely to look
into
for our leaders. Let's not be selfish. Let's not be selfish. And that is what I would say.